Okay, why don't we get started? This is the Ways and Means Committee of the RTM. And first thing we'll do tonight is take roll. Representative Black?
Here.
Here. Mr. Brooks?
Yep.
Here. Mr. Hines?
Here.
Ms. Waterman?
Here.
And I'm John Hartwell, and I'm the chair. So thank you all for coming out tonight. We actually have a larger audience than I ever expected. More noise? Okay. All right. The second item on the agenda after the roll call was to consider the meeting minutes notes from September 6th. So there's a slight note here, slight deviation. When I put this agenda together on Monday, the minutes from the November 1st Ways and Means Committee special meeting wasn't up on the website, so we didn't know that in fact the September 6th minutes had already been approved. So we'll take that item off the agenda. However, there are the minutes from the 1st of November special meeting, which is also, those are now up on the website. We have two options here. We can move to put the minutes from the November 1st meeting on as a special with a 2/3 vote, or we can hold it off until our January meeting. I don't really care which way we do it, but one particular note about this is that Representative Black was the only one on the Ways and Means Committee at that time in the special meeting. So once we do put this up for a vote, the four of us are going to abstain, and he's going to vote yes, because in that meeting it was everything that went on that meeting on November 1st was 5-0. So I don't think there's going to be any kind of concern about that meeting, but it's simply how we handle the notes. So I'm open to either way of doing this. We can put it on as a special now, or we can go forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we add that to the agenda. Just for your information, I mean, we haven't been approving, or most committees haven't been approving the minutes. They have to go up within 48 hours or something. So we usually, the month lag between minutes doesn't allow for that. It also, with the way our RTM is structured, nothing that we decide in committee is a final decision.
Right.
I mean, we can all vote unanimously one way, and then at the full RTM it goes another way. We can take no action, etc. So I would, we can leave the September 6th on there, and
Well, they've already been approved, so we don't need to worry about it.
Well, they haven't been, but
and
no.
your
What I
meeting
was
on the
saying
first
is they
they were.
never really were approved, and that November was a special meeting. They wouldn't have been
You're right,
approved
but they were
anyway.
on the minutes.
So
All right.
I would leave.
Go ahead.
My motion would be to leave the September 6th on there, but I'd ask for a 2/3 vote to add the November special meeting, and I need a second.
So
for
moved.
that.
Second, okay, so, all right, so. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we are going to consider the 6th of September, because it shouldn't have been done in the special committee on the special meeting on the 1st of November. So can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll so move.
Mr. Black again, second?
Second.
Mr. Hines, okay. Can we vote on adding and approving that? And in this particular case, I would ask the four of us to abstain. So
I will vote aye.
Ms. Black votes aye.
Power, Peter, the power.
Any votes no? Abstentions? All for it? The motion carries? Okay. And so we are now going to consider the minutes from November 1st. Need a motion on that?
So move.
Mr. Black, okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Waterman, thank you. Any discussion? No? All approved?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. No, we only have Mr. Black can approve. Anyone
abstain, so-
abstains?
I can approve, but it doesn't matter.
You weren't here.
It doesn't matter. I can still approve it.
All right, okay, so it will be 3 to 1.
Do whatever you want.
Okay, 1 to 3. All right, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is to consider and if appropriate, approve a tentative agreement by and between the town of Branford and the United Public Services Employee Union, Parks and Recreation and Custodians through June 30th, 2026. And I believe we have our HR director to see us, Ms. Liberta. How are you?
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Sure, nice to be here. Some new faces, some older faces. Nice to see you both, the new and the old. I'll just take a minute or two for those who are new to describe the process of it that we go through in getting to an agreement. The town has 9 union contracts and 1 group of unaffiliated. So we, in essence, have 10 separate companies, if you will, when it comes to an HR processes of each of those contracts having some nuances that are different and yet similar too between them. So the contract, the agreement we have before you tonight, and I do have extra copies if anyone would like one, I'd be happy to share with you. You're okay. So let me know. Thank you. So this union this contract has about 9 members in it, so it's a rather small union, Parks and Rec. The positions that are covered are noted here in this packet. You can see that as one of the appendices. And I've noted the highlights and changes right in front of you on the first page. We can do this in any format. We generally review those highlighted changes to see if there are any questions or concerns associated with them, and certainly I'll take them as they come and answer them as best I can.
Well, you can guide us through this.
Okay, thank you. So the highlighted changes, I think obviously one of them is important, is the wages and benefits. And we've come in at a 2.5% increase for each of the years, which we think is agreeable, especially in this economy. The exception to that is there is one position that we adjusted, and we feel that's appropriate. Both sides agree it's appropriate because the position was below market. And that is the Arts, Cultural, and Special Events Programs Coordinator position, which, as many of you know, is one that's very visible within the community and also quite busy all seasons. So we've adjusted that to make that job similar to the Programs Coordinator position. And it's once you review the job description, you would note that these are analogous in responsibilities to each other, these 2 positions. So we're requesting, of course, a market adjustment for that position. Unusual for us to do so, as you can appreciate if you've been on my program here before, but we feel it's definitely warranted at this time. I should also mention, if I can stop for a second, is that to get to the point we are today, I meet with the department head for the Parks and Rec prior to the contract negotiation starting, and of course with the first selectman. And we are all on the same page in terms of what our goals are. Hopefully we get there, and I think in this case we have this year. The medical program, which we note here as a change, we're in the Connecticut Partnership Plan 2.0 medical plan. Very good plan, if I may say so, and most of our employees seem to be happy with it. The employee contributions for the partnership plan will be 13% of the premium, which of course changes each year, when it will increase to 14% in July 1st of 2025. The clothing allowance, this was a request from the union, the clothing allowance increased to $175, which is basically for work boots. And from a risk management standpoint, in which I'm also responsible for, I'm a big pro fan of work boots being appropriate for risk factors associated with maintainers having their jobs. I think that's obvious. And the last is the contract will remain in effect until June 30th, 2026.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this contract. I think it's a good contract for the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So let's have some discussion. Anyone have questions for this, Mr. Brooks?
So it's clearly a fair contract for the town. So, I think it's a win for the town. My concern is the employees. The inflation rate, that's what I was just looking up on my phone, it's at 3.2%. So at the end of this year, they'll be making less than they did at the start of the year.
Well, I think when you consider compensation package, you have to consider the benefits as well as the base salary. And the union agreed to this 2.5%. They're in support of it. And I think it's also because we do talk about, for example, this town has a very generous pension plan, one that doesn't exist in too many places except state employees and Branford and a couple other towns. And that's the Connecticut Mirrors plan. And if you know anything about that, you'll know that the employee that is participating in that plan for a number of years will do very well. Almost 60% of their base salary averaged over the last 3 years of their employment when they do retire. A very generous defined contribution program. And I think you have to weigh that in, as well as the town has been very generous, at least in the 5 years I've been here, in considering even at non-inflationary periods, increases of 2%. And so there's been a consistent message given to our employees that we are conscious of you and what you contribute to us, even though, of course, we can't do that individually. We have to do it on a union contract. We are very conscious of the fact that the town does value your service and cares about you as an employee in terms of overall packages that we give. I didn't even talk about the vacation or the sick or the other generous benefits that are given that weigh into the cost of the employee cost to the town. So I can only comment to that is that the union and the town are in agreement with this baseline increase.
And I would agree. I mean, and I will vote for this without question. And I'm not questioning again
Sure.
that it's a good contract for the town and the employees.
Correct.
Again, my concern is, so, the year starts and I make, let's say I make $60,000. That $60,000 at the end of the year is not worth $60,000. It's worth $57,000. That's not the correct math. Jim would correct me and call me names if he had a chance. But that's, that.
I correct you, I just call you names.
So, and if we compound that, now I understand this is we're in a high inflation time period globally, and we weren't so much 3 years ago. So I respect that. My concern is, and I've seen these contracts for 20 years, and this is very standard. My concern is that in 4 years, are we going to remember that this was a fair, 2.5%, and if the inflation from now till then has jumped exponentially, will we go to, it's sticker shock when it goes to 5%.
Well, I guess I have to comment and say, if you or I knew what was really going to happen in 4 years, we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be on a yacht someplace.
I would still be here.
Well, I respect that also. But at the same time, I think we have to understand that we sat at a table, similar to some arrangement today, and sat across and talked about and agreed to, and they are adults, They know what's out there in the economy. They're clear in their objectives too. They do the same thing I do with their leaders and their people. And we came to mutual agreement. And terrific for all of us, you know? And I think that's how we have to view this. This is a win-win for both sides. And I am grateful that I have these employees that we had this good conversation with and got to this mutual agreement.
Again, I'm not gonna vote against it, so it doesn't matter.
That's nice to hear, but I you know, it was a good process, is all I can say. It was a fair process.
Other questions? No? No? I have a couple. I noticed that the starting point for this contract is last July, a year ago.
That's
Can
right.
you explain why it is that it took such a long time to negotiate and bring this to the table?
Sure.
When it seems like a pretty straightforward deal?
Yeah. I think the best way to describe that is that sometimes it takes a long time to come to agreement. And as I said earlier, each of us have our own positions, both management and employees. And it has taken us a while to meet and agree. And for right now, I'm comfortable with, that's about all I'm commenting on.
And what's going to be the financial impact now of what I assume is back pay?
Yes, it'll be retroactive. I'll be back here asking for that money too.
That's what I was asking about. So you don't have a number tonight, but
No, I didn't
but
bring
you
it.
you are saying that yes, you will be back.
Yes.
Okay, great.
If the RTM approves.
If the RTM approves, exactly. One of the things that looked to me, I read through the contract, and the holiday situation, I mean, we have 13 holidays when you put together the 2 half-days, and a lot of sick days, which can be some converted into personal time. All of that seems perfectly reasonable. But one question popped up because some of the holidays seem to be very religiously oriented, especially Good Friday, and I'm wondering if I were a town employee and didn't particularly have any religion, could I take that holiday some other time, or how does that work?
Sure. Again, both parties during the negotiation have offered different things related to holidays, for example. And both parties have come to agreement that these are the holidays that they want to celebrate.
Okay.
And so there was no discussion about a generalized PTO program, which we certainly could institute. There was no interest in going into some consolidation program when it comes to holidays. But I do think the personal days allows for the flexibility of the employee who has a religious holiday that maybe one of us don't want to celebrate, but he or she wants to celebrate that opportunity, including their birthday. if they want to.
Okay. It does seem to be a pretty flexible
Yes.
set of days off, which obviously we all need these times. I noticed also at the very end that there was a withdrawal of a labor relations action.
That's right.
I'm assuming, well, you can tell me, don't make me assume. What exactly was that?
It was action that relates to something that we're still involved in because it hasn't, this agreement has been approved.
Right?
So I'm actually not at liberty to discuss it.
Okay.
Until this gets approved, and at that time, things can become public. But I'm not
Okay,
comfortable
all right,
discussing
but I
it.
noticed it was withdrawn, or will be withdrawn with prejudice, meaning that it can't come back again.
That's right.
Right, okay, so that's, I assume, was all part of the negotiations. Right. Anyone else on the board have questions? No, anyone from, I noticed that there, oh, I'm sorry, Peter.
Yeah, just Mr. Chairman, not a question, but a comment. Just Good Friday is a state holiday, as is Lincoln's birthday. And I know, one thing that probably got negotiated out, 20 years ago is our town employees get the Friday after Thanksgiving off, but they gave up Lincoln's birthday, other than the transfer station employees, because you have to collect the garbage at least 5 days a week. You can't do the job in 4. So they work the Friday after, and Saturday, and then they get off Lincoln's birthday. It's always a surprise to some constituents when they go to the dump or the town hall. And, you know, the state courts will be closed on Good Friday and on Lincoln's birthday, but not the federal courts.
It's so helpful to have all of this background. Everything has a story. In the audience, I see that there's several members of the RTM, including in Public Services, also the Majority Leader. Do you guys have any specific questions that you want to pose? No? Anyone else from the audience who would like to comment or question anything having to do with this? No, I don't see anything, so we can take a vote, yeah?
Did someone second the
sorry.
motion?
Sorry?
Did someone second
Yeah.
Peter's motion?
Yes,
Oh, shit, okay.
yeah, Alyssa did. So, all right, so all in favor of this contract?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
I think I'm on the next one, too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You didn't get away.
Yeah.
All right. So, we have the, consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer request and resolution from the Director of Human Resources for fiscal year 2024 pursuant to the RTM approved collective bargaining agreement for the Public Works Union contract as follows. And the numbers total up to $35,145.
That's correct.
Anything about this that's, we should know?
No, just that this, of course, contract has already been approved by the RTM, and now we're here at the transfer point, have calculated those monies that we need to transfer and asking for your approval.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve.
Thank you.
Mr.
Second.
Chair, I'll second it.
Second.
Chris got in first.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, Peter.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? No. Great, thank you so much. Now you. All right, terrific. Moving along. Number 5 on the agenda, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer and resolution from the Director of Information Technology for fiscal year 2024. From the ARPA fund, increase the fund balance transfer by $30,000, and to technology acquisitions phone system for $30,000. Mr. Finch, I think you can.
I'll give it a pinch hit shot, and this was also presented at the admin services last night. That's where the IT department typically goes, but.
Right.
So basically, the way that Debbie described it is that we're replacing our phone system at the police station. One of the products she was looking at was voice over IP, which means that the phones are portable. And many of the phones throughout Town Hall have been converted to this. In addition to the portability, she was saying you can integrate it with Microsoft Teams. So there's Microsoft Teams on the phone. The reason that she requested at the end of the last RTM session was essentially because that puts them in a position, if the police station renovation was to go through, there would be some folks that would basically being housed at the police department. And so then they would be able to take their phones with them had they had this phone system.
I'm sorry, at the police department or at the fire department?
I'm sorry, police going to fire.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so that would allow that portability. And so while it was in the works to get replaced anyway, the thought was to move that up in the event that the police station, which again, right up until this point, the only dollars for the police station that have been approved is like $75,000 to do some conceptual stuff, another $250,000 to basically get an estimate. And so, but it would not be something that would be wasted if the police station was not approved. So it would happen anyway. That had more to do with the timing of it. And the Board of Selectmen approved a bid waiver as well. The 30,000 is over our bid threshold, so she had gone to the Board of Selectmen first and then went to the Board of Finance.
So in reading through this, I just had a number of questions regarding, so first it says the request is for the possible relocation. As you said, relocation hasn't yet been approved, so it's, but then why, how is the phone system working in town? Because it said some of the town already has switched over to the voice over.
Yeah, I have a voice over IP phone.
But then others had not, so with the exception of fire, animal shelter, and counseling center. So why, first of all, was the police, why is it coming now? And why is it just the police, and then if the other parts of fire, counseling center, why are they not being proposed?
Well, fire already has it, I believe.
It says with the exception of fire, so fire had already, I'm just looking at the bid rate.
Yeah.
So it says,
You're under existing contracts, so I think in that line that you're referencing, if you don't mind, Chair.
Sure, please.
yeah,
That she referenced, I think, the animal shelter, fire, and
counseling?
counseling have existing contracts. She's moving over to utilizing the New England employee, and they will probably all move to this new system, which, as Jim said, is, and again, I thought fire already had the capability. I believe Jim is correct in that. But that's that's why those other, the animal shelter and counseling center were not done. It had to do with where they were with their current contracts. They're under a contract with a certain provider currently. When that expires, we'll be moving everything over to the same system. So this was a program, a project, I should say, that the IT department started back in 2021, migrated, as she referenced, the town hall department, some other departments, was anticipating to make a request for this next fiscal year budget to migrate the police department over. But given that the project may be on the horizon, she wanted to move this conversion over sooner to give them time. Yes, the project has not been approved, meaning the police station renovation project, but the schedule right now, as going through the appropriation and the approval process, our consultant is telling that this could go out to bid and begin in the summertime. That's if everything moves forward as the proposed schedule that they laid out. IT looked at that and said they'll be under a crunch if the PD is going to move some personnel over to the fire department. They would be under a serious time crunch, or may not even be able to accommodate their phone system going there. And she made the request to move this project up, came forward to the Board of Selectmen to engage New England employee to do the PD, got a proposal, and now it's going.
So is the only reason for this because of the potential move? Or why, because why wouldn't it have, if the other reasons that were put forward in terms of the, kind of like increased opportunities for a more current phone system, why wasn't the police transferred over earlier?
Why weren't they part of the original?
Correct.
I think at that point, it was just really looking at, they wanted to do I think our systems were coming, town hall in particular. I believe it had to do with both the contract and also just kind of where they were in terms of wanting to implement the Microsoft 365. And so that's why they started with these initial builds. It was going to be a planned project, but it was what they can undertake reasonably in a reasonable amount of time. They had a contract that was expiring, I believe, for town hall, and that's why you may see it, she references the 5-week schedule, where New England was not only the lowest quote solicited, but also made a commitment to assist with the conversion within the 5 weeks. Because the system that we were using at town hall, we received a notice that we were no longer from a provider going to be able to receive service in terms of maintenance or service. So that's why we put them under a crunch to get that done in the 5-week time period.
And then the use of ARPA funds, so is that So being able to use the ARPA funds for, for the phone for the police and not for the other groups?
No. So basically.
And again, I'm
and,
sorry for the question, I'm just
No,
trying to
no,
understand
I
what.
mean, and this is, again, that's a reasonable question, especially coming from a new RTM member. So some folks may have heard this last night as part of the introduction to the Branford Community Foundation. So the town of Branford basically received about $8.259 million in ARPA dollars, okay? And the Treasury guidelines, have different rules as to how that money can be used. If you are a community that receives less than $10 million, you can elect the option of revenue loss, and that's what's called the standard, basically, allowance. I think the best analogy I can give for the standard allowance is similar to the way many individuals do their taxes, right? You can say, all right, let's just say the standard deduction for next year or this year is roughly $28,000 for a couple, let's just say. So the government's basically saying, $28,000, I don't need to see any documents, I don't see any documentation that we are giving you that. But if you want to do $30,000, you've got to itemize, keep detailed records, et cetera, et cetera. That's somewhat similar with the standard allowance for us, except obviously we keep records on it. And the standard allowance language says the revenue loss can be used to fund, quote, government services. And it gives a list of government services. If you were to compare that list of government services to the town's operating budget, you would immediately come to the conclusion that they're strikingly similar items, right? And so what we've done here in allocating our ARPA dollars is we've tried to basically replicate the way we do our budget process. Now, the RTM typically doesn't approve grants, okay? But the reason we followed the budget process, or we used that process for ARPA, was for a couple things. One, it's a public process, right? Departments go to the Board of Finance, they present items. And then the Board of Finance incorporated some of those recommendations, if not all of them, into the ARPA budget. That goes to the RTM. So the RTM has committee hearings on the ARPA budget in addition to all the other budgets, whether it's the counseling center budget, whether it's the school-age child care, whether it's the adult education, whether it's the sewer authority, whether it's the sewer assessment fund, et cetera. So there's the general fund and these other budgets. ARPA is now added to that, as well as the animal shelter fund. Because the allowable use is government services, basically buying IT equipment, replacing a phone system, would be stuff you would find in the government budget. So that's where it's the government services. There were some things that were excluded that you couldn't use it for, that they made certain exclusions. For example, you cannot put the dollars in a sinking fund. You cannot put them in a pension fund. You cannot put them in an OPEB trust fund. So those are some items that were precluded. But generally anything else that's in our operating budget is something that we can use it for.
So this would be under?
Government services.
And that you can use it for. So then I guess, is this specifically because of the potential for the new police station, or is this because this is something that needs to happen anyway, and that you are, proposing, and you can be used under ARPA money, and there's still money left over?
I think we take a step back, Elise. I think that the driving piece of this is the timing, and the timing is being pushed by the potential police department renovation. And I say potential because obviously, as we've underscored. So if you look at it this way, so let's say there's two options. You don't do this, or you do this, right? You don't do this, and the police renovation goes through, you kind of put yourself in a rough spot, right? If you do this, and the police renovation doesn't get approved, well, what's the harm? You basically did this sooner than you would have liked to. We didn't tax for it because it wasn't part of the operating budget at the time. And so we still had money left over in our ARPA allocation, and so that's why, and it was a candidate. We did use ARPA monies for other IT stuff in the past. So in a way, it's kind of worked out well, because if, for example, that this would be a worthless expenditure, if the police station didn't get rid of it, then we wouldn't have done it. So it's really, you got two pieces. You got the timing piece, because it's off budget cycle, it's an allowable use because of our standard allowance. And then you have, well, if the police renovation goes forward, it's a better option than not approving it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. Just one ancillary question. Once we've spent this money out of ARPA, how much is left over?
Well, there's basically, in terms of what's allocated, there's roughly about $1.6 million left, I believe. And so we will be looking to deal with that throughout the, yes, there'll be $1,655,21 after this.
Okay.
So the $8,257,000, you know, we up until this point did $6,572,000. This other $30,000 brings it to $6,602,000. And so, and just to give you an idea, some of the other IT stuff, we've used it for a storage area network for $160,000, cybersecurity for $25,000, desktop computers for $30,000. So now that's not an exclusive list of what we used it for, but you can see that there's a pattern of using it for IT type items.
Just a question not related, Jim, because maybe I'm just don't remember you saying this in the past. Is there a time limit of when we have to spend the ARPA money by?
Yeah, it has to be, you basically have to have it obligated by December of 2024. And
So
then
about a year.
Then you have some time after that to have it spent.
Is it
And so, for
2024
example,
this year? We're in 2024 right now?
we are in fiscal 24, it goes by the calendar year. Yeah, no.
So a year from basically
Yeah.
today? Okay. That's a...
No, listen, I especially, you know, if anybody's at the selectmen's meeting tonight, you know, we're waiting for the 22 audit, we're doing for the 23, we're 24.
I know.
You know, now
I
we're
have no
for
idea
fiscal
what's-
24,
I-
working on 25 budget, Sundays, Wednesday at Carvel. I am all school. So I just don't know where we're going with any of this stuff, but anyway, so,
Okay.
Be 2024, I wouldn't know.
yes.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions? No? Anyone from the audience have anything they want to contribute? So can I have a motion, please?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Doug. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Abstentions? No? Carries 5-0. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, don't go away. I keep putting this in the wrong place. All right. Item number 6, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer resolutions from the Finance Director for fiscal year 2024. From the General Fund appropriation increase, fund balance appropriation $285,000, and increase the police pension contribution $285,000. Mr. Finch,
Thank you.
you're on.
Yep. So, by way of background, one of the things that the town of Branford has in its budgets, and I know for those who have been here, it's I'm just basically telling old stories, but we basically have a contingency account, and I'll bring everything up here. And so, I think, John, you had asked, you know, what are some of the, knowing that this is an older year contract, the Parks Department. So, we make assessments as to whether we think contracts are going to get approved or not. And one of the areas we put those in is in contingency, along with some other possibilities that are not known at the time, you know, whether it's fuel costs, some years, whether it's a primary or not for registrar voters, whether we think that there may be a need for a contingency in our legal costs, because our legal costs are response-driven, et cetera. So in fiscal '23, basically, the balance in the contingency account was $307,000. And so I'm working on the agenda, and I'm saying, well, you know, since this money didn't go out for labor contracts or other things, what would be a good use of these dollars? And so I know we have our pension plan for police is not fully funded. It's depending on what point you measure it, it's in the low 70-ish%. And so the thought is, well, you know, let's take $285,000 and stick it in the police pension fund and reduce that liability. Now, because this was where we were in the year, you know, this is a October Board of Finance meeting. You know, I've already given numbers to the actuaries to do their reporting for our GASB reporting requirements. So that $307,000, you know, basically closes out the fund balance. It goes to the surplus or accumulated surplus. So thought as well, okay, but we'll just do the same thing. We'll just do it over a span of 2 fiscal years. And we'll take the $285,000 and stick it in the police pension fund. So that's essentially what we did. Because of where we were in closing the year, we weren't going to go back and then I was going to call the actuaries and say, oh, by the way, adjust this report by $285,000. I could effectively do the same thing by taking out a fund balance in a newer year because it's got to close the fund balance in the old year. So that's essentially what is being done there. Yes.
I saw the report from our people that do that balance situation, which was pretty good. You just said it was 75%.
Low 70s, yeah.
Low 70s. Does this get us to 78%, or does this get us? You know, what is the percentage to get to?
Well, basically, if you go by the last actuary evaluation, we were roughly 10.4 million in terms of liability, which needs to be funded. So if you take 285,000, you're talking probably improving that percentage by about 2.7%.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just figured 250 would be about 2.5. If
Right.
that was 285, it's not really 10. So
I
give
trust
me
your
some
math.
leeway on that. So
I trust your math.
all right. So yes.
So, just
Oh, I'm
through the
sorry.
chair.
Go right ahead.
The discount rate on the police pension is at 6.5%,
It is, Peter.
and we just lowered the OPEB to 6%. Is that correct?
The OPEB was lowered, yes.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember from the
Yeah, I
Board
think
of
that-
Finance,
Right.
and I
It's
just,
still fresh, but let me just make sure that is exactly what we did. But
I don't know what OPEB is, but that's what they did.
actually, I think we lowered it to 5.5%.
on the OPEB.
Yeah.
And we have some more restrictions on what we can invest in for the OPEB. than
What we did,
police
what we
pension.
did is the town historically uses an asset liability matching approach, right?
Yeah.
So I don't sound.
I don't need to get too deep into
Okay.
this, Jim, but it's just a sort of yes or no. You know,
What was
more
it? Are there-
Oh, is it more restrictive, like say heavier on bonds or whatever for the OPEB?
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes. Yeah, so it went to
So
70.
the lower rate of return is somewhat tied to what we're investing in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the funding levels.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the pension fund, is that where, at the Board of Finance the other night, there was a vote to flip the asset allocation?
Yes, there was. So basically, at the Board of Finance, there was two different approaches, right? Not two different, there was two measures that were taken. So we have to take a step back now to kind of put this in context. So the question was, with interest rates higher, right, because they've been low for a very long time, does this warrant a different look at the way we are allocating our assets in the pension plan? Primarily because, one, the Board of Finance has been conservative in the past, and they've always had a goal of trying to match liabilities. And so if you were retiring, for example, and you said, I can buy a bond for, and here's what I think I'm going to need for my portfolio in retirement, and I could buy a bond or 6 bonds to match 6 years of what my spending is. Well, that's a good approach to take in terms of a matching, and then everything else can go into the stock. So basically, rates were higher, and so there was really 2 options. One is, do we increase our return on asset assumptions? If we did that, that would also help us because our liabilities would be discounted by a greater number. But there was not an appetite to do that. In fact, as I mentioned at the Board of Finance, I was at a Connecticut Public Pension Forum conference, and I put forth that question, and a couple actuaries popped up, so I guess that's a way to, if you ever wonder how to trigger an actuary, talk about changing return assumptions in high interest rate environments, and we'll get them to react. But anyway, so we triggered some actuaries on that, and so the thought was, okay, well, our actuary was not inclined to support that. What this firm has been recommending that clients do is take a pause. That was the term. Just take a pause. And but you can adjust your allocation. So myself, the actuary, and the investment consultants, we were all meeting between the 2 Board of Finance meetings to look at what else might we do. And so on the police side, we could be more conservative because interest rates are higher. We could still keep the rate at 6.5% return on assumptions. On the OPEB, because of changes on the liability side and other things, and the funding status, we can go as low as 5.5%, be well funded, and match, if we go 70%, about 21 years of liabilities. If we went 80% fixed, we could go to 25 years of liabilities. And so we would basically be immunizing all of our liabilities in the valuation period, to which I said at the meeting, well, I just want to be clear that what I said in my memo about completely immunizing liabilities, I meant during the measurement period. I'm not to suggest that somebody comes back 25 years ago and says, well, because of what we're funding, and blames me for it. And so, so anyway, that answer your questions?
Well, it does, but the OPEB is overfunded.
Correct.
So you don't need a very high rate of return in order to immunize in your term future payments. But
Yep.
We're not overfunded in the police pension fund, and by flipping that asset allocation to make it 60% bonds and 40% equities, the town is not going to retire. I mean, that's an asset allocation that a retirement person should have, because you want to minimize your exposure to the market, and you also want to guarantee your flow of income, so that the remainder of your life you're not going to be challenged. But as I said, the town's not going to retire. So
no, the town isn't going to retire.
We're giving up the upside of the market by flipping that allocation.
Well, you're also taking less risk also.
Exactly, we are. But generally speaking,
return, right?
you look at the market over a period of years, 10, 20 years, it's going up. Anyway, that's not our job here, unfortunately, because we don't have anything to do with it. Josh, did you want to say something more?
The Board of Finance said, don't worry about it. They won't hold you accountable in 25 years. I will, Jim. I'll remember this.
And he'll be calling you
conversation.
names as well.
Well, because you're not going to be on the yacht, as we've always established in Margaret, so.
All right, any other questions, comments on this? Anyone from the, sorry, yes. Representative Everson.
Jim, where are we in terms of funding of the police pension? I'm sorry, did I miss that?
Yeah, no, well, it is a big room. Yeah, basically, Tracy, if you go back to the last valuation, we're in the low 70s. about 71, 72%, and it fluctuates. You know, every time there's evaluation, and that's based on the way the actuaries measure it. That's one measure. In audit reports, you see it more on a market basis, so that tends to fluctuate a lot more. The reason, obviously, a market basis because we're looking at 630 on any given year. The pension, on the other hand, uses an asset smoothing technique in which we amortize gains and losses over 5 years. But in terms of, you know, when folks look at our pension funding, you know, it's considered to be a decently funded plan. OPEB would be excellent. And then I think we probably have a compared to what advantage, right? So I think Sean Scanlon, if he was looking at the state funds, would look at ours and say, yeah, Branford's doing a pretty good job. Because
Absolutely.
The state isn't anywhere near that. They're doing a
No,
great job.
no,
So,
no.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we are well funded on the police pension side, no doubt, there's no doubt. Okay, anyone else, any questions? Can I have a motion here? Elizabeth?
Motion to.
Yes, okay. A second, please?
Second.
Second, Chris, thank you. How many approve here?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Are you going to introduce the next one?
As it appears, I will, yes.
Okay, great. And then, all right, terrific. So, to consider and, if appropriate,
Hi, sir.
approve the following list of Branford Community Foundation ARPA recommendations and resolution approved by the Board of Finance on November 22nd, 2023. I'm not going to read through the list. It is extensive. Jim, why don't you do a quick intro,
Yeah.
and then we'll get to Ms. Petra.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, actually, I think Elisa's question is probably a good segue in terms of our ARPA allocation. So in addition to general government services, which we talked about, you know, the whole philosophy of ARPA funding generally also related to helping folks in need, helping organizations in need. And so we did recognize that in Branford. And so the Board of Finance and the RTM had allotted $425,000 to distribute to area nonprofits. And what was apparent to us in the administration is that, well, that's not really, we don't really have the bandwidth to do that. That takes a screening process, a solicitation process, a point scoring process, et cetera. And like I said, for example, government services is strikingly similar to what we do in the general fund. Distributing these dollars is strikingly similar to what the Branford Community Foundation does. And so after the Board of Finance had asked us, or had made the allocation of 425 in the RTM, they asked us to come up with a distribution strategy. And so we essentially, over that time period, had conversations with the Branford Community Foundation. So they were ultimately selected by the Board of Selectmen to do this process for us. They were known in the community, they had experience with this, and they were seen as a trusted source. And so they basically had an allocation of 395. The difference between that and 425, obviously they're not doing it for free, and you know they're a bargain, and we're happy that we use them. And basically, I think there was about 27 applications, of which 25 were approved, and we'll talk about one of the ones that wasn't approved later on the agenda. A quick look at this, it looks like probably about 16 out of 25 got everything they asked for, and I'm including the roundup on the land trust in that statistic. Technically, they got more than they asked for, but it's fine. And so basically, but I can't faithfully discuss the process that the Community Foundation went through, but
You're doing great. You're doing great.
But we have Liza Petra here, and she is the head of the Branford Community Foundation, and as it relates to this kind of stuff, I'm more like the intern in it, so she could give you all the details. And, you know, I help out with the Board of Finance and RTM, so.
Liza, you're on.
Oh, thank you. Well, first, I just want to, again, thank the town, the first selectman, for giving us the opportunity to help address some of the holes that COVID waged for our nonprofit organizations, and the opportunity to be able to help make them whole was a really wonderful one. We have long-standing relationships with many of these organizations, all of them, actually. So it was really nice to be able to have this funding that's different from our regular funding because it's retroactive. So these funds could be, the organizations could simply demonstrate financial loss from COVID, and we could help support them. So we entered into that contract in February. Our board, we established a special ARPA review committee that included not only our existing community investment committee, which reviews our grants, but we wanted to expand it out to be a little bit more representative of the full community and to ensure that we had legal, educational, financial, other representatives on this. And I'm happy to give you the names of those folks as well. You probably know many of them. And then we set a process. We brought all of the organizations together before we finalized what the priorities and what the application looked like, so we could really hear from them what would make a difference to your organizations. So we had about 55 people here downstairs, I think, in April to talk about that. And after that, we finalized the application process. We publicized it as widely as we possibly could. Through social media, publicity, etc. And we assembled our team, the committee. The committee was trained. Everyone completed a conflict of interest form, a confidentiality form, and then the applications were due September 8th. After that, the committee met 7 times. We were asked for about twice the amount of funding that we had available, about double the amount. So there were some really good, hard conversations during those 7 meetings. They were diligent. Not everybody agreed on everything. We went back to some organizations when we had questions. And I just wanted to say the chamber who is here, the chamber demonstrated financial loss, but the chamber is not a true charitable organization. So we felt like it was not fair to them to be compared to our charitable nonprofit organization. So they definitely demonstrated financial impact, but we wanted to take them out of our process to be more fair and transparent. So at the end of the day, we had 27 applications. 25 were approved. You stole all my thunder.
Sorry.
We prioritized basic needs, mental health, and strengthening the community. That was also something we were going for. So you have the list in front of you. I'm really, really proud of the work that we did. It was difficult, it was thoughtful, and if you have questions, I'm happy to take them. Just don't quiz me as to really details, because there were 27 applications. Yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Go
I
ahead,
have
please.
several questions. but if-
Absolutely, go right ahead.
This is for the, first of all, the one outfit that wasn't funded at all was Branford Village Foundation. I've never heard of them.
Yep.
What do they do? And
So they were new to us as well. Their mission my understanding is to promote one of their key, I'm going from memory here. One of their key factors is to try to save the Canoe Brook building. So that's one thing that they were very active in. And they also, I think, were very interested in creating a sort of a Sturbridge, Massachusetts place here.
A historical museum kind of place?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
gathering of historical buildings.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
That's my rudimentary understanding.
If I can't,
Please, go right ahead.
Next, just moving through the list backwards, the Cove Center for Grieving Children
Yep.
is based in Cheshire.
Yep.
They're saying they've served 91 families. How many of those families were from Branford? And, what's the proportion? Are they getting support from other towns that they're serving? It seem to be mostly Cheshire, Farmington in their operation.
So
Website.
it's interesting because there are quite a few organizations whose business addresses are not Branford, but the services that they provide into our community are the only game in town. So the Cove works with families that are dealing with loss, a parent loss or a partner loss. So I believe the number of Branford individuals or families is under 10 families, but it could fluctuate given a crisis in our community. But again, they're the only organization that provides that kind of family support when a parent or a partner passes away and they're young children who need those kind of crisis intervention services.
Just through you.
Please.
Our counseling center doesn't provide that?
It's not the same kind of service, so this is specific towards grief and grieving. The counseling center provides different kinds of supportive services.
The other thing, if I may, is one of the criteria when we're talking about supporting organizations, is that, the counseling center, who wasn't going to be participating in this process because they get funded on the town side through some of our ARPA dollars as well.
Yeah, no, I understand
Oh,
that.
okay.
She just said that they were the only ones that
Oh, I
provided
see.
this
Okay.
service, and I would have thought that our counseling service, our
By
center
this service, I mean
provide-
specific grief for the entire family. So they do like art therapy for kids who are lost. They have a camp that's
Yeah.
for kids. And actually, just for your information, Peter Semino sat on our ARPA review committee, so he was really helpful in being able to help us consider what needed to be funded.
That's, again, working through the Dr. Martin Luther King Foundation. This money is essentially for scholarships, for money that they would have raised from the breakfast, but weren't able to. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. The move to heal, they started in 2021, so how did they demonstrate revenue lost due to COVID?
So the funding was actually, the impact of the funding that was lost started on March 30th, 2021. So it actually, anything during the 2020 was not actually able to be considered, so it was only after that. Move to Heal was somewhat of an exception because of the services they provide, which is substance abuse or substance prevention. And there was...
I mean, they didn't start until halfway through the pandemic, which started in roughly March 2020.
I think, I'm not sure that it was 20.
And they didn't, so they wouldn't have, normally you'd say, hey, in 2019 and in 2020, we raised X amount of dollars. We weren't able to have our breakfast, we weren't able to have our book sales, et cetera. So, you just, but if you don't start until 2021, you can't do that. So I'm just wondering
How to justify the amount that was given. Yeah,
Right.
they asked for much more than that.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's still a lot, I mean, compared to the others.
Just to clarify, I think they stated that they started at the very beginning. They were
I think it was 2020.
established right at the beginning when the pandemic hit, and that then put a burden on them in terms of what money they anticipated to raise for donations, despite not having raised that money. They carried through 2021 still to provide service. That's how.
And the website said they started in May 2021.
I can look back at it. I don't have the application right now.
And, my last is just a comment, the Fairhaven Community Health Center, I know during COVID, they essentially shut their doors to residents of Branford. They weren't in Branford, and, for instance, they were giving, I was looking for a place to get a vaccine, and it was, they're around the corner from me, and they were just East Haven and New Haven, that was it. So thrilled to see them.
They also provide all of the school-based health care for Branford school systems. So they are in every one of the schools here.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks for those questions, your due diligence.
Josh?
I mean, I don't have a question necessarily about the list. I've looked at it. I do have a question, and maybe this is something I should contact you, not from here, but was it your in all of this research, and it was a lot of research, it was a lot of work, you were limited in the funds that you could give. You had a number, you know, that, so you wanted to be fair to all the organizations, and some got more, some got less than what they wanted more, but they got less. Did you find in that there was an organization that needs more funding?
Yes, I mean, I'll just as an aside, the town of Guilford, I'm also the executive director for the Guilford Foundation. The town of Guilford allocated $1 million for this, which we're announcing tomorrow, those awards. The town of Guilford organizations, many of them overlap, 13 of them actually overlap across both. And we were asked for almost $2 million in Guilford. So I think organizations can always use more. There are certainly some on the list that we had wished would have asked for a little bit more, and we fully funded, and we didn't feel, except for the Branford Land Trust, because we didn't want to give it $9 out, because that's just really bad math. We did not feel as though it would be fair to organizations to go above what they had asked for in the application. So if we felt it was a worthy, justifiable cause, we gave them the full amount. Are there areas that could be improved? Absolutely. I mean, the service needs, particularly mental health, particularly youth, and basic needs. You know, Judy Barron, who I'm sure you hear from all the time, actually Deborah just told me that they have 161 families who are in need of adoption for the Christmas tree. They currently have, you know, that, which is, what did they say, double, triple?
It's almost triple the usual ask. Right now they're 6 feet short on sponsors.
Yeah. So the need exists. And the other thing I will say is a nod to both Guilford and Branford is that these are the only two towns who opened up the process in Connecticut to
Really?
Nonprofits in this way. Yeah, we hired an ARPA consultant. That's part of the administrative costs. We hired an expert because I'm not an ARPA expert. So we hired someone to help us, and he was consistently blown away by the process. He'll come to the RTM meeting next week.
Yeah, he was there for Board of Finance.
Yeah, he was there as well.
So following on Josh's question here, if a year from now, we're on the verge of not having spent all the money because Jim has been hoarding it.
I keep like hating him upside
That
down
is a purely hypothetical situation.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You have a list.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I could definitely advise on that. Absolutely. I would want to, you know, again, it's a partnership with these organizations. You'd want to make sure that we had an understanding of what they needed at that time. But these are industrious, hardworking. Some of them are very small, like, you know, like the Cove and like others. Some of them are larger, like Fairhaven. But they all have been impacted, you know, like every business, like every one of us has been impacted. And so it's, again, I'll close with how I began. It was just a real honor to be able to help provide some of the assistance to these incredible organizations in the community.
And I think it's true that as a community, we're very much in your debt for what you do. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Oh,
wait.
Question? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fine, Mr. Toohill.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Toohill.
Just a question about the total and the math. I just did it. So it was 425, and that was to be given to area nonprofits, right?
395.
No, the total amount.
I thought it was
That's the
425.
difference is the administrative.
Yeah. So in other words, remember I said that, you know, they're receiving dollars to do this process, and then the 395 is what they had to work with.
Okay, so, I mean, if you start with 425, and then, as the Board of Finance was told, you pay the foundation $395 per applicant. There were 27 applications, and so the total fee to the foundation was $10,665. That leaves $19,335. So my question is, let me finish.
Sure.
My question is, right, are there expenses I'm not aware of, or is there still a surplus left? Okay, now you can go.
All right, thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Well, let me reframe the concept. So the 425 was the decision that the Board of Finance that you guys approved, was how much to take out of the allocation. And part of the understanding was that, you know, our revenue allowance was pretty much exclusively for, as we talked about general government services. We wanted to put something to the community nonprofits, also recognizing that the town on a regular basis is very active in the mental health, as you pointed out with the counseling center. You take the town's counseling center budget and the benefits and costs of running that, you know, that is a significant investment that the town makes. And we also increased dollars for the counseling center and their basic. So we start with the 425, and we, you know, try to estimate what the Branford Community Foundation's going to cost. And so, if we do the difference, you know, we're talking about $30,000. So we will not know if there is a surplus or not until the process is complete and we get our last invoice from the Branford Community Foundation. We would anticipate it's going to be pretty close.
So at this point then, Jim, right, so you're currently expecting to spend $30,000 on the administrative fee for this, is that right?
Yeah, and that's to support the organization of 55 to 70 people that you had working on this, and all of the steps and the things that they did, yeah.
And the consultant.
And the consultant.
Yeah, it was 5%.
Yeah, they paid the consultant.
I mean, I know, but I'd like to see, you know, like an itemization of the $30,000, how it was spent. I mean, the Board of Finance was told it was $395 per applicant for a total of $10,660.
The per applicant.
I copied it down, you know, as it was said,
I'm sure you did.
verbatim.
Something was, that's
Yeah,
not
something-
correct. It was
yeah.
about 5% fee, right?
Yeah, our administrative fee is 5%, and our consultant is 4%. So the overall administrative fee is about 9%.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. Who proposed?
A motion that we accept as presented by the Board of Finance.
And
Second?
second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. All right, last
I'm done? Okay.
but not
thanks.
least, the Chamber of Commerce. So, Dee, Jacob, welcome.
So we just want me to start?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a prelude always.
All right, so I think the table's kind of been set for Dee's presentation,
Right.
based on Liza's presentation. It's all part of the same memo, and I think what's been recognized in this is the Chamber is is a key organization in town, and I think there was a recognition of their value to the town. The town had previously funded the Chamber under a different program, which, given timing and some other challenges, basically it was determined by the Chamber that they couldn't basically execute that. And so they gave the money back to us. And when we learned of the way that the BCF's point of view on this, myself and the first selectman, and then with discussions with the chairman of the Board of Finance, said, well, let's just find another pathway. And so essentially, let's just repurpose the dollars that the town had given it previously, which was $25,000. And instead of using it for a mentoring program, they certainly meet the test of revenue loss. So, and that's where we are.
Thank you. The Shoreline Chamber represents the towns of Branford, Guilford, and North Branford. It came due to actions of the Branford Chamber of Commerce, forming an alliance with the Guilford Chamber of Commerce back in 2012 in order to both spread the load, but more importantly, to be able to have broader impact in a community where there's a lot of cross purposes. In 2018, North Branford joined in on that. So we are a 3-town chamber. However, the majority of what we do are in the 2 original chamber towns. About 90% of our activity is in those towns. Our purpose is a dual purpose. Obviously, we have a membership organization. And so on the one hand, we are there to support and serve our membership. We do that through another systems that are established and software that's established to allow them to help get their messaging out. But the other part of our mission, and it is one that probably takes a lot more of our staff time, is supporting the economic vitality of the 3 communities that we serve. And we do that by supporting things like local town merchants group, by supporting town events. I'll be on the street tomorrow night directing people where to go for shop, sip, and stroll. Many of those people participating in that are not members. You know, we are here because downtown helps make Branford attractive. And we do things like legislative forums. We just had one at the Blackstone Library that was open to the public in order to provide access to our legislators and programs of that such. We went through all the education meetings that Liza detailed. We have been previously funded by the BCF for other grants and sponsorships. And so we applied through the process. It's a quite detailed application. Put that forth and applied under the element of economic loss. In total, we are actually impacted from the time period of the end of March of 21 through the end of 22 to the tune of about $250,000. And we did have many years of history prior to that to build that on. But when we looked at the part that was more applicable to the town of Branford, the total came out to be about $103,000, with the majority of it coming from not being able to do some of the funding events that we do both for the public, like what we do on the Green for the Branford Festival, or doing something, so that was like $75,000 of it, and another I think it was $26,000, $36,000 came from lost membership, etc. I did mention at last night's committee meeting that as soon as businesses were told to close unless they were needed in terms of the health and welfare of the public, we had 118 members drop their membership. You know, it's a kind of impact when you're trying to figure out how you're going to survive and for how long and whatever. It's hard to justify any other expense that's outside your business. So though we met all of that criteria and determined to have economic loss, we had asked for them for $35,000. The decision came back to us that we were one of the 2 that was not going to be funded through the program that BCF was administering it. However, again, the town graciously considered relooking at maybe reallocating the dollars that we turned back. The process to get funding in the town of Branford was longer than we had anticipated. The project that we originally had was going to require several years, and the timetable to commit our resources by the end of 2024 was a challenge. We could not see how to get from point A to point B and have the impact that we want. We thought it was the best decision to turn those dollars back to the town to do what they would. So we are here, back again. Really through the auspices of a suggestion of the Branford Community Foundation and the leadership of the town. Thank you.
Josh?
I watched the Board of Finance meeting, and then you just said the numbers again. So these numbers were in my head, and I don't. I mean, you're asking I'm being asked to approve this money, and I will approve this money without question. So, but my question is, simmer down there.
No,
Simmer
you
down.
said you'd approve it without question, but your question is.
My
like,
question
now
is-
it's tricking us now.
Yeah.
Is this- I mean, I'm a business owner in Branford. I'm not part of the chamber, and because I'm an idiot.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
No,
He's got a-
but,
got a membership form.
Is this? I mean, you lost a lot of money. Not a little bit, a lot of money. Is this? Is the Branford or is the Shoreline Chamber of Commerce going to be okay, or do you need more money?
Because again, our two majority communities are both Guilford and Branford, we applied to both under, as Liza mentioned, there's another program in town. Yes, the big impact for us is obviously cash reserves, and anybody who's in business knows you can have an unexpected expense, you can have any of those kinds of things. It doesn't keep us from operating. But the reason it doesn't keep us from operating is like, again, many of you, we shut our doors. We moved out of a building in Branford. We lost our security deposit. We found free rent someplace else for several months. We cut our staff of 5 down to 2 part-time people who were 30 hours a week in total. And I know all of you have all gone through some of these same similar stories. And that's why with the loss of revenue, we took as many actions as we could to try to ensure that it wasn't devastating. But our cash reserves are lower. And that is a direct result of that there's only so many things that you could do. We turned our program, through the help of our board, into doing a lot of education throughout the community and the shoreline on PPP loans and what's an EIDL and what are the latest requirements from East Shore Health and those kinds of things. And we funded a tourism program during this time to advertise our shoreline towns and took ads out on the radio in terms of things, because we felt those were the actions that we could do to support the communities, and that by our mission, we are here to support for economic vitality. So the answer is yes. And you never want to ask a Chamber of Commerce if they want more money.
Well, I'm not asking if you want more. I'm asking, are you going to stay afloat?
Yes, this amount is less
Because
than.
I'll shake Jim up
Yeah.
by his ankles.
This amount is less than what we asked for from BCF, but it makes a dent into increasing our cash reserves. And thank you for asking.
Just a couple of questions. So one, what was the program? Can you go a little bit more depth about what the program was that you returned the money for? And then what, if giving back the money, what will the money be? What will it be used? Is it just going into cash reserves?
So to answer the first question, it was a Coaching for Business Success program that we had piloted in a different town, that we had like an 8-month head start in that, and had already been doing some of the pre-work, understanding that we would have gotten funded in the other town. We started talking about this in Branford in the beginning of 2022. I can't even try to keep my years straight. Apparently a common element tonight. In 2022, but didn't receive funding to the end of 2022. And in ramping up for 2023, and looking at what it would take, we would recruit outside consultants. It allowed us to have fees to be able to provide that consultancy into businesses in need, et cetera. The timeline to market it, to find the consultants, to market to businesses in the town, to close in terms of that, did they want to invest the time in it, that the consultants would be paid for. It was not going to happen because of the ARPA requirements to commit the dollars, which for us we would have to be under contract with all those and with the consultants for that. So it's a 3-year program in the other town, and we were looking at probably having about 1 year and 8 months. And the whole element was the breadth of businesses that we can have to have impact. Doing things for the sake of having no impact really doesn't meet our mission. So that's why we turned it back. What the funds, if they're approved ultimately through the RTM, will go to, it will be to replace cash reserves, and as needed, as we have unexpected needs outside of our budget, to cover that.
So there's not a specific, because again, I guess I'm curious as to why, I mean, if you've done this program for other towns, so presumably the infrastructure was there, so I guess I'm a little.
Completely different town infrastructure. So consultants come from the town, so if you do it in one town, you don't have them available in this town. You have those businesses and all the messaging out on there. It's a different messaging for these towns. The type of businesses that are in Branford are different and don't necessarily replicate the same. But that was a decision that was made with our board, and we felt it was in the best interest to return money back to the town because we weren't going to be able to have the impact that we wanted to based on the timetable.
But if the money's going to reserve, you could simply reportion it later on and do the program anyway, could you not?
We could, but none of those monies basically come to the chamber. They would all gone out, they all go out of the chamber, so in that project, except for a very small administrative fee.
Plus, John, one of the things we did with the chamber was we had them sign a subrecipient grant agreement that said that they would use the money for a program. So they were contractually bound.
I understand, so those are the monies that came back to you. I was just
Yes.
saying that if this money gets approved, it goes through your reserves, you could in fact restart that program using those reserve
If we
monies.
restarted that program, that money would then go out to pay outside consultants.
Right.
So it wouldn't be reserves anymore.
It wouldn't be reserves anymore, but it would still be part of your mission. It would be in congruence with your
Yes,
mission if
but
you decided to do it.
We have other programs that we've have stood up and that are part of our program for
Okay. But there's- yeah.
204. I just want to clarify, in the application project process to BCF, you could pick two routes to go. One was business loss, and I have to say we were encouraged that if you were a nonprofit, which we are by tax code, we are 501c6, that to apply for that, which the vast majority of the applicants that you recommended for approval to the RTM demonstrated the same thing, business loss over time. There are a few, you could also have applied for a project, all right? We chose not to do that project in terms of what we have. We have other things that we have in the works that would be covered by what we're planning to do.
All right. Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Great.
Second.
Okay, Doug. Anyone from the audience has anything to say? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Momentito.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 9, pursuant to Chapter 47-4 of the Branford Town Code, consider and approve the capital projects transfer request for the finance director as per the attached detailed list with totals summarized by RTM committee. There's a real question as to how much of this actually belongs here this evening.
Yeah.
3,500 of it
Yeah,
does.
Yes.
The rest of it probably doesn't.
correct.
And so I would make a motion that we approve this and move on.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right.
I can't believe that we would spend any more time on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay,
I'll
thank you so
abstain.
much. All right, last item
I'll
on the,
abstain, he didn't present, so I'm gonna abstain. And I want the record to show it.
crikey. All right, 4-0-1, and that would be
Give you one.
Joshua.
Give you the
All right. All right, okay, great, so I have noted that. And so the last thing on the agenda is to establish a 2024 meeting calendar. I have proposed that we meet on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. I had originally put, in my mind, it was going to be in the Montaguese room. We got moved tonight. I actually like this room. I think this is great. This works fine for me.
You're better off. You're better off.
So is everybody, can we do that?
I think you just have to say.
Well, we did, yes, but when I put my thing into Dale, I said Montague's room, but, you know, this is far better, and I like this, yeah.
I'm a big fan.
So everybody good with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I need an emotion? I guess I do.
John, I'd like to amend this.
Sorry, can I, excuse me, we haven't quite finished.
I'd like to amend the schedule to delete the Wednesday, July 3rd meeting. That would be on the eve of the July 4th holiday.
It would.
I don't know what the, new regime is planning for the summer. We usually take the summer off, but, if we have special meetings, so, I'd like to just delete that. We can leave the August 7th one. You can cancel it, and if we need a special, go for it. I don't know if that's...
I mean, yeah, but you could have left it on the 3rd, and we could have canceled that one as well.
Right.
I'm just
What?
saying.
No, he's saying cancel the 3rd.
Yeah, just-
He's saying delete it off the schedule.
Oh.
You're gonna cancel the 7th, but fine, take it off the schedule. I'll vote for it. I'm in favor of that vote. I'm just saying it was a little
All
unnecessary.
right.
I mean, if it...
Good.
I just,
I
when
know,
was-
I got, it's fine, it's fine.
It's 6 of them has happened, but, I don't think we want to plan on meeting on the evening of a
If we get the
holiday.
meeting to be over,
I
we
wouldn't
won't
blame you
discuss it
anyway.
right now. I'm coming to see you on that.
All right, so as amended, the schedule will be all the first Wednesday of the month, except for the 3rd of July. Yes? Can I have a vote on
So
it?
moved.
I've already got you down as a...
I don't even buy green bananas.
Yeah,
I'm looking
sounds
at
good.
July.
Any other business? No, thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second
Second,
approved.
we're out of here.